Well, the fanfare would indicate that yet again it's Mr. Anderson here with another podcast for GCSE Citizenship revision. And this one is for Theme 2, Power, Politics and the Media. And I'm going to begin with talking about power and politics. If you can turn to the correct page in your revision booklet and we'll get going. The first question I ask you there is, should 16-year-olds be allowed to vote? And I suggest you discuss it. Talk with your friends about it. Why should they? Why shouldn't they? For example, is it right that someone who can't legally have a credit card or a mortgage, or isn't allowed to get married without permission, should have a say in choosing who the government of the country is? On the other hand, if you can join the armed forces and live on your own, why shouldn't you, and pay tax, why shouldn't you have a say in who your government is? The question is, why do so many people get worked up about that? It's because we live in a democracy, and democracy is the key word here. Democracy means that we're a free country, a country where people can choose between different groups of people and different parties with different beliefs to decide who will run their government or their local council or their regional government if you live in Wales or Scotland or Northern Ireland. And of course, it's over the age of 18. For a long time, of course, women couldn't vote. It was only 1918 that they got the vote, and not until 1929 could they vote when they were at the same age as men at 21. Now, of course, it's 18. But do you think it should be down to 16? Now, we're going to begin here looking at national politics and move on to local politics and local government in a moment. Britain is a parliamentary democracy, which means that we don't have a president whom we elect and runs the country. Instead, altogether, we elect our members of parliament. Now, as it says, Parliament in the UK is made up of two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. There are over 600 members of Parliament who are elected every 4 or 5 years. Now, the whole of the United Kingdom is split into areas called constituencies, which have about the same number of adults in each, and each constituency elects one member of Parliament. Now, do you know how members of the House of Lords get their seats in that House of our Parliament? And tell me, do you think it's fair? Now might be a good time to pause and find out, or make some notes about it if you're not sure. In other countries, such as the United States and Russia, people elect a president, and that president is the executive. So that one man, usually, in the case of America and Russia, is the person who basically runs government day to day. And their parliament will write laws, make laws and propose them, but they have to do it in conjunction with the cooperation of, the president. Things are different in Britain. All of our MPs can make laws, propose laws and vote on laws. And in theory, depending on which party is in power and which party our local MP is from, any member of Parliament could be in the government and any member of Parliament could be the Prime Minister. After every general election, which has to be held within 5 years, the Prime Minister is the leader of the largest party. Now, very occasionally, we have what's called coalition government in Britain, where no one party has a majority of seats in the House of Commons. Therefore, they have to share with another. And in a coalition, it's usually still the leader of the largest party who becomes Prime Minister, but they have to have another party on board as well. Now, in Britain, we have 3 major political parties who represent most of the United Kingdom. The governing party at the moment, of course, is the Labour Party. The main opposition are the Conservatives, and after them, the third party are the Liberal Democrats. Britain also has regional nationalist parties as well. So in Scotland, if you believe in independence for Scotland, you might vote for the Scottish National Party, the SNP. In Wales, you might vote for Plaid Cymru, the Party of Wales. Northern Ireland is slightly different. Generally, none of the main 3 parties stand there. So people in Northern Ireland vote along completely different lines. But don't worry, you shouldn't be asked a question about Northern Ireland at all. Now, in Britain, we hold our elections on a system called first past the post. Now, there's many people who believe that we should change our electoral system to something called proportional representation. But there are so many different versions of that no one can quite agree on what we might change it to. Many European countries run their elections using PR, whereas many English-speaking countries, in particular India, Britain and the United States and Canada, use the first-past-the-post system. First-past-the-post is very simple. You have a constituency, a seat with one person to be elected, and let's say you have 3 candidates. Whoever gets the most number of votes wins the seat. Dead easy. But of course, if you've got 3 candidates, it might mean that someone wins with just 34% of the vote, whereas almost everyone else has voted against them. The question is that right? Under a system of proportional representation, whatever it is, political parties usually get a similar number of seats in Parliament on a percentage basis to the percentage of the votes that they were given by the electorate. The downside of that, fair as it might be, is that you end up with more coalition governments. Fewer governments of one party that you can say, they are responsible for that, therefore I will vote for them again or against them again. Now, once they're in Parliament, MPs can hold many different jobs. Perhaps the most important person in Parliament is not actually the Prime Minister. You could argue it's the Speaker, and the Speaker acts rather like the Chairman of the House of Commons. The person who sits in the green chair at the front of the House of Commons is the Speaker, and the Speaker has to be non-party political. They don't go to party meetings, they don't vote with a party at all, they make sure the House of Commons operates fairly. Who is the current Speaker of the House of Commons? There are a number of other jobs as well. Within the government, we have the highest body is the Cabinet, and the Cabinet usually has between 20 and 25 members, each of whom heads up a government department. For example, the Department of Children, Schools and Families, or the Department of Business and Regulatory Reform, or the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. And the person who heads that department and sits in the Cabinet is known as a Secretary of State. The only difference to this is the person who's in charge of the Treasury being the department that takes all our taxes and decides how to spend it, and that person is called the Chancellor of the Exchequer. But who holds those two roles that we have written down there? The Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Secretary of State for Schools. You find out their names? Now might be a good time to pause, and also to match up who leads our three main political parties. Now, government only works if it's got money to spend. And where does it get that money from? Well, it gets it from you and I. It gets it from us in taxes. Some of the taxes are taken from the government, in fact most of them from income tax. So the money that we earn, a percentage of it is taken off. If you earn the average salary of £21,000, for example, the government will take around about £9,000 or £10,000 of that in taxes every year. But you are probably a taxpayer as well. You pay value-added tax, VAT, on many of the things that you buy. For a long time it was 17.5%, it's currently 15%, but towards the end of the year or early next year we'll go back up to 17.5%. So you are a taxpayer, and how much money the government has is dependent on how much tax we are all able to pay or choose to pay. But those are not the only taxes. Can you find out other forms of taxation and find out what we spend our taxes on as a nation? This is decided by the budget, and the budget is actually going to take place this week, and by the time you hear this it's probably already taken place on Wednesday. So why not go back and have a look what was in the budget? Now, because YouTube only likes videos of 10 minutes longer or less, and I'm going to go on for a little bit more than that on this particular theme, now's the time to end part 1 and go and do some of those activities that you've been looking at, and then go to part 2 where we'll continue with power, politics and the media.